My brother became obsessed with my wife, sent fake intimate photos and messages to her work claiming they were having an affair and stalked us for months. I, 27 meters, never imagined I would be sharing something like this, but my wedding day turned into an absolute nightmare because of my younger brother, Andy, 24M. I got engaged to Diana, 29F, last year after dating for 3 years. We met at my best friend Sarah's backyard barbecue when she was new to town. She spilled her drink on my shirt, spent the whole evening apologetically trying to help clean it, and somehow managed to make me laugh through the whole thing. The connection was instant and undeniable. While I was helping her dab at my soaked shirt with napkins, we discovered we had the same taste in obscure indie bands and both secretly loved terrible sci-fi B movies. By the end of the night, we were sitting in a quiet corner of the yard, completely lost in conversation while the party continued around us. We exchanged numbers and have been inseparable since. Diana is everything I could ask for: kind, brilliant, successful in her career as a software developer, and absolutely devoted to our relationship. She has this incredible ability to make me feel understood and valued in ways no one else ever has. When she talks about her work designing healthcare applications, her eyes light up with such passion that it's impossible not to be drawn in. Growing up, Andy and I were incredibly close despite our 3-year age gap. We shared everything: clothes, secrets, inside jokes that drove our parents crazy. We even had our own made-up language that we used to pass notes in school. Our teachers thought we were writing gibberish, but we had an entire coded system that only we understood. It became our special bond, something that was just ours in a world where it felt like adults controlled everything. When our parents went through a brutal divorce, Dad cheated with his secretary, classic story. Andy and I helped each other cope. I was 15 and he was 12, and we would spend nights huddled in my bed planning our future perfect lives where nothing bad would ever happen. We promised to always protect each other and never let anyone come between us. On particularly bad nights when we could hear Mom crying through the walls, we'd sneak out to the backyard with flashlights and look at the stars, making up stories about alien worlds where families stayed together forever. The change in Andy started gradually during his freshman year of college. He joined a fraternity and suddenly his whole personality shifted. It wasn't just the typical college experimentation or finding yourself, it was like he became a completely different person overnight. Where he once had quiet confidence, he now had a brash arrogance that made me uncomfortable. His Instagram went from posting about books and art to endless gym selfies and shirtless photos. He would call me late at night, slightly drunk, bragging about how many girls were sliding into his DMs and how he could get any woman he wanted. I tried to be understanding: college is for finding yourself, right? But something about the way he talked about women began to worry me. They weren't people to him anymore, they were conquests, trophies to be collected and displayed for social media approval. But it hurt watching my sweet, funny brother turn into someone who only cared about attention and validation from women. The brother who once spent hours helping me build elaborate cardboard forts was now spending thousands of dollars on designer clothes he couldn't afford and documenting every moment of his carefully curated life online. When I first brought Diana home to meet the family 2 years ago, Andy's behavior set off alarm bells that I stupidly ignored. He arrived 3 hours late to dinner, claiming he'd been at the gym, though the strong smell of cologne suggested otherwise. He came downstairs in a tiny tank top and short shorts in November, giggling at everything Diana said and constantly finding reasons to touch her or sit next to her. During dinner, he somehow managed to bring up stories that highlighted his athletic achievements and barely concealed references to his dating life. He would text me before family dinners asking if Diana was coming, then show up with his hair styled perfectly and wearing his most attention-grabbing outfits. If Diana complimented him on anything, his watch, his haircut, anything at all, he would wear or display it prominently at every subsequent meeting. I convinced myself he was just being friendly and outgoing, especially since Diana never seemed to notice or encourage it. The wedding planning process is when everything really went off the rails. I asked Andy to be my best man, partly because of our history and partly because Mom pressured me, saying it would hurt Andy's feelings if I chose someone else. At first, Andy seemed thrilled, helping with Pinterest boards and venue ideas. His enthusiasm seemed genuine, and for a brief moment, I thought I had my brother back. But then the criticism started. My dream suit was too plain and boring. Diana deserves someone who looks like they belong on a magazine cover, not at a funeral. The wedding colors, navy and silver, were too stuffy. It should be more vibrant, more Instagram-worthy. The venue wasn't glamorous enough. This place? Seriously? It doesn't even have a proper backdrop for photos. Every choice I made was wrong because apparently, Diana deserved a husband who would give her an Instagram-worthy wedding. When I reminded him that both Diana and I wanted something intimate and meaningful rather than flashy, he rolled his eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. "You just don't understand what women really want," he told me, as if his 6 months of jumping between Tinder dates made him an expert on my fiancé's desires. The groomsmen's suit shopping trip was the first major blow-up. I had found these beautiful navy blue suits that all 5 groomsmen loved. They were elegant, comfortable, and perfectly matched our theme. My other friends were enthusiastic, already joking about how they could wear them again for other occasions and taking selfies in the fitting room. Andy refused to even try his on. Instead, he emerged from the dressing room in this skin-tight, fire engine red suit with a neckline down to his belly button and a slit up to his hip. The sales associate looked mortified, especially when Andy started strutting around the store like he was on a runway. When I told him it wasn't appropriate for a morning garden wedding, he caused a scene in the middle of the boutique. "You're just jealous because I have the body for this and you don't," he screamed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You've let yourself go since meeting Diana. No wonder she's been messaging me behind your back." That last part froze me in my tracks. It was so outrageous, so obviously false, but delivered with such conviction that for a split second, a seed of doubt planted itself in my mind. The other groomsmen were mortified, muttering awkward excuses as they slipped away to the other side of the store. My mom had to drive Andy home while I sat in the bathroom crying, wondering how my own brother could sabotage what was supposed to be one of the happiest times of my life. The rehearsal dinner was even worse. Andy showed up an hour late wearing a white mini outfit that looked like lingerie more than formal attire. He'd clearly been drinking before he arrived, his eyes glassy and his movements exaggerated. Within minutes of arriving, he was flirting aggressively with Diana's college roommate, then with her cousin, then even with her 65-year-old aunt. He got completely wasted on champagne and started telling everyone about my embarrassing teenage moments and failed relationships. He brought up my college ex who cheated on me, embellishing the story to make it sound like I was somehow at fault. He detailed my brief emo phase in high school, pulling up ancient photos on his phone and passing it around the table. He even described, in graphic detail, the time I got food poisoning on a first date and had to rush to the restaurant bathroom. Diana finally stepped in and told him he was being cruel and inappropriate. Her voice was calm but firm, the same tone she used when dealing with difficult clients at work. "Andy, I think you've had enough to drink. This behavior is embarrassing you and hurting your brother. Maybe it's time to call it a night." Instead of apologizing, he stormed out screaming that we were all just jealous of his youth and beauty, and that at least he knew how to have fun. He knocked over a champagne tower on his way out, sending glass and alcohol cascading across the floor in a dramatic exit that ensured no one would be talking about anything else for the rest of the evening. I should have uninvited him from the wedding right then, but Mom begged me to give him another chance. "He's going through something," she insisted, the same excuse she'd been making for him since he hit puberty. "He's your brother, your only sibling. You'll regret it forever if he's not at your wedding." And he apologized the next morning, blamed it on the alcohol, and promised to behave at the wedding. His eyes were red from crying, and he looked so much like the little brother I'd protected all those years that I wanted to believe him. That was my first mistake. The wedding ceremony started beautifully. The garden was perfect, with spring flowers blooming along the aisle and soft music playing as our guests found their seats. The weather was gorgeous, sunlight filtering through the trees to create dappled patterns on the grass. Seeing Diana tear up as I walked down the aisle made all the stress worth it. She looked radiant in her simple but elegant dress, her smile brighter than I'd ever seen it. Then we got to our vows. I had just finished mine, my voice cracking with emotion as I promised to stand by Diana through whatever life brought us. As she began to speak, her eyes locked with mine in a moment of pure connection, and he shot up from his seat screaming, "This is wrong. This whole thing is wrong." His voice echoed through the garden, shocking everyone into silence. He was crying. "Diana, you can't do this. We have something special. Tell them about our connection," the one he could never understand. He was rambling about late-night conversations when I was asleep, completely untrue, since Diana works early mornings and is always in bed by 10. He described secret meetings and messages that had never happened. He called me a manipulative jerk who had tricked Diana into proposing, who was keeping her from her true happiness. Security had to drag him out while he kept screaming that Diana would realize her mistakes soon. My mom was sobbing, her carefully applied makeup leaving dark tracks down her face. My dad looked ready to disown Andy on the spot, his expression a mixture of rage and mortification. All our guests were whispering and recording everything on their phones, the sacred moment transformed into viral content for their social media. Diana held my hand, her grip tight enough to hurt, and we somehow finished the ceremony, but the whole thing felt tainted. That night, in our hotel room before we left for our honeymoon, Diana finally showed me what had been going on behind the scenes. With shaking hands, she unlocked a folder on her phone labeled Andy, evidence, and showed me months of harassment I'd known nothing about. Andy had been messaging her constantly through every social media platform. He would comment heart emojis on all her photos, even old ones from years before she met me. When she blocked him on Instagram, he made new accounts to keep contacting her. He would reply to her professional posts on LinkedIn with inappropriate comments about her appearance. He sent her long rambling messages about how he understood her better than I ever could, how they were meant to be together, and how she was making a mistake being with me. Some messages came at 3 a.m., stream of consciousness walls of text declaring his love. Others were more sinister, suggesting he'd been watching her, noting details about her routine or what she wore to work. Diana had been blocking and deleting everything, trying to handle it quietly to avoid family drama. "I didn't want to come between you and your brother," she explained, eyes downcast. "I thought he'd get over it, or that I could manage it without involving you. She showed me screenshots where she repeatedly told him to stop and that she would never be interested in him that way. I'm completely devastated. The brother I grew up with, who helped me while I cried over our parents' divorce, who knew all my secrets and fears, tried to destroy the happiest day of my life. The brother who once promised to always have my back had literally stabbed me in it. I felt physically ill looking through the messages, hearing my wife describe how she'd been enduring this harassment for months while trying to protect my feelings. My parents are divided on how to handle this. Mom keeps saying Andy is young and confused and needs his family's support, that cutting him off will only make his behavior worse. Dad thinks he needs serious professional help, suggesting we look into inpatient treatment facilities. Diana and I left for our honeymoon right after the wedding, partly to escape the drama and partly because we desperately needed time to process what had happened, but Andy won't stop harassing us. He found our hotel in Hawaii somehow, sending gift baskets to our room with increasingly disturbing notes attached. He calls and texts constantly from different numbers, saying he made a mistake and needs to explain, that Diana is sending him mixed signals he needs to clarify. I blocked him on everything, but now he's messaging other family members claiming I'm keeping Diana away from her true love. Update: I wanted to wait longer before updating, but things have spiraled so far out of control that I need to write this down just to process everything. Our 2-week honeymoon in Hawaii should have been perfect. The resort was beautiful, the beaches pristine, and the little bungalow we splurged on offered the privacy and romance we'd been dreaming of. But coming home was like walking into a tornado of fresh chaos. The day after we got back, Diana's work phone started ringing nonstop. Andy somehow got her direct office line and began calling 30 to 40 times a day, telling anyone who answered that he needed to speak to her about their secret relationship. Her company has this policy where all external calls get forwarded directly to people's desks to make sure no client calls are missed. Diana had to sit through call after call of Andy crying, screaming, or trying to sound seductive while claiming they'd been having an affair for months. The next day, he escalated further, starting to email her entire department doctored photos of them together. He must have spent hours working on these images, taking pictures from Diana's social media accounts and skillfully editing them to create scenes that never happened. In one, they appeared to be kissing at a restaurant Diana had posted about visiting with coworkers. In another, they were embracing on a beach that I recognized from our own vacation photos. The photos were obviously fake to anyone who looked closely. One had visible distortion around the edges where he'd meshed 2 images together. Another had inconsistent lighting between their figures. The third showed them supposedly kissing in a location Diana had never even visited. But at a glance, especially to people who didn't know better, they looked convincing enough to raise serious questions. Diana had to have this humiliating meeting with her manager in HR to explain that her brother-in-law was having some kind of breakdown. They were understanding but insisted on documenting everything in case Andy escalated further. They assigned someone to screen her calls and flagged all external emails for review before they reached her inbox. He did escalate. Blocked from digital contact, he started showing up at her office building during lunch hours, wearing tight clothes that matched what I typically wear, styling his hair like mine, and trying to catch her in the parking lot. The first time, he chased her car all the way to the street, pounding on her window at stoplights and screaming that they needed to talk. The second time, he tried to convince security he was her husband bringing her lunch, wearing a wedding band similar to mine and carrying a bag from her favorite restaurant. Now there's a photo of him at every security desk with instructions to call the police if he shows up again. Diana has started carpooling with a colleague, too afraid to walk to her car alone. She jumps at unexpected noises and checks the locks multiple times before going to bed. The most devastating part isn't even Andy's behavior. It's how many family members actually believed him. My Aunt Maria, who I've always been close to, called me sobbing about how she knew Diana was too good to be true, that she'd had suspicions from the beginning. My cousin Pete started posting cryptic Facebook statuses about how women never change and karma comes for cheaters, tagging me in thinly veiled references to the situation. I tried explaining to everyone that Andy was lying, that Diana had never even been alone with him, that we had evidence of his fabrications. But they kept saying I was in denial, that Andy would never make up something like this, that there must be some truth to it if he was so convinced. It felt like I was going crazy. These people have known me my whole life, known Andy's history of attention-seeking behavior, seen how he acted at the wedding, and they still chose to believe his obvious lies over me. The breaking point for my mom finally came last Thursday. She and Dad were asleep when Andy showed up at their house at 3 a.m., completely wasted and barely coherent. He started pounding on their door, screaming that he needed their help to win Diana back because they were truly in love and I was keeping them apart. When they refused to let him in, trying to calm him through the door, his behavior turned destructive. He grabbed one of Mom's prized ceramic plant pots, a family heirloom that had belonged to her grandmother, and threw it through their living room window. Glass shattered everywhere, some shards narrowly missing my dad's face as he stood shocked in the darkened room. Dad called the police, but Andy ran off before they arrived, disappearing into the night like a ghost. Mom found his phone in the bushes the next morning, apparently dropped in his hurried escape. What she found on it shattered her remaining illusions about Andy's innocence. The phone was open to a fake Instagram account he'd made pretending to be Diana, complete with edited photos making it look like they had some secret relationship. There were intimate conversations he'd fabricated between them, where Diana professed her love and talked about leaving me, interspersed with Andy's own messages from his real account responding passionately to his fictional version of my wife. Diana and I realized we had to do something drastic to stop this from destroying our entire family. We spent an entire day putting together a mass email with a detailed timeline proving Andy's claims were impossible. We included screenshots of Diana's work calendar and our honeymoon booking showing she was never where he claimed. We added all the harassing messages he'd sent, the clearly fake photos with analysis pointing out the editing inconsistencies, and statements from Diana's coworkers confirming she never met with him at her office. The most humiliating part was having to share personal details with our entire extended family just to prove our innocence. We included hotel receipts from dates he claimed they were together, showing Diana was actually with me hundreds of miles away. We shared security footage from Diana's office showing him stalking her, obtained with the help of her sympathetic HR department. We even had to include private messages where she repeatedly told him to stop contacting her, her tone evolving from gentle concern to firm boundaries to outright fear as his behavior escalated. The email helped convince most people that Andy was lying, the evidence too overwhelming to ignore. But the damage to those relationships is already done. How do I forgive my aunt for instantly believing the worst about my wife? How do I forget the way she looked at Diana with suspicion and disdain, making snide comments about women these days within her hearing? My mom has finally stopped defending Andy, the revelation of his fake Instagram account breaking through her maternal denial. But she still hints that maybe we should all sit down together and talk things out as a family, that with the right therapist present, we could work through this misunderstanding. She doesn't understand that there's no coming back from this level of betrayal, not from Andy, and not from everyone who took his side without a second thought. Update 2. Things have taken an even darker turn, and we finally got a restraining order against Andy. I really thought after our mass email exposing his lies, he would back off and get help. The evidence was irrefutable, his deception laid bare for everyone to see. Instead, he escalated to a level none of us expected. Last Tuesday, I was working my regular 12-hour shift at the hospital when Diana called me in a complete panic, her voice so high and breathless I could barely understand her through her sobbing. She's been working from home since the office incidents, converting our spare bedroom into a makeshift office. Around lunchtime, she went to the kitchen to make a sandwich, taking a brief break from a video conference. When she came back upstairs, she found Andy in our bedroom, going through our closet and dresser drawers. Clothes were strewn everywhere, drawers pulled out, intimate items displayed on the bed. He had climbed in through a small window in our guest bathroom that we sometimes leave cracked for ventilation. The terrifying part is that he knew exactly which window we leave open, meaning he'd been watching our house, studying our habits and routines. When Diana confronted him, he didn't even try to run. There was no shame, no embarrassment at being caught breaking into our home. He just sat on our bed crying, surrounded by her clothes he had pulled out of the closet. He kept saying he just wanted to be close to her, to smell her clothes and feel her presence. Some of her things were pressed to his face, others carefully arranged around him in some sort of ritual that made sense only in his disturbed mind. Diana said he was talking in this creepy calm voice like what he was doing was completely normal. He told her he'd been doing this for weeks whenever both of us were at work, just sitting in our room and imagining their life together. Diana managed to stay calm enough to get to her phone and call 911, keeping Andy talking until police arrived. He didn't resist arrest, continuing to speak softly about their special connection even as officers handcuffed him. The police found a journal he'd left behind in his rush to leave, a leather-bound notebook hidden under our mattress where he apparently stored it between visits. I read some of it before handing it over as evidence, and I wish I hadn't. Pages and pages of detailed sexual fantasies about his life with Diana, descriptions of their supposed secret meetings, practice signatures of Andy plus Diana's last name written hundreds of times in different styles. He had written fictional diary entries dated in the future describing their wedding day, apparently on a beach in Maui, and their honeymoon in Paris. During police questioning, Andy revealed something that made my skin crawl. During one of his parking lot ambushes at Diana's old office, he managed to slip an Apple AirTag into her car's backseat. That's how he knew our schedules and when the house would be empty. He had been tracking her location for weeks, knowing exactly where she went and when. We found the AirTag hidden under the back seat cushion. The police found 2 more in her purse and jacket pocket, placed there during his unauthorized visits to our home. He also confessed to creating multiple fake social media accounts pretending to be Diana's ex-boyfriends. He used these accounts to message me with detailed stories about how Diana had cheated with them too, trying to make me doubt her and break us up. The stories included real places Diana used to frequent and real events she'd attended, all mixed in with his fabricated affairs. He even photoshopped pictures to make it look like Diana was with these fake exes at real events, creating visual evidence of relationships that never existed. My parents finally stopped making excuses for his behavior. Mom broke down when the police showed her Andy's journal. What scared me most was finding out Andy had completely derailed his own life for this obsession. He hadn't attended a single college class all semester. His professors confirmed he stopped showing up in September, missing midterms and final projects without explanation. The police took all of this evidence seriously and helped us get an emergency restraining order. Andy can't come within 500 feet of us, our home, our workplaces, or any place we regularly visit. He's also banned from contacting us through any means, phone, email, social media, or through other people. Looking back, I feel stupid for not getting the restraining order sooner. We kept treating this like a family matter that we could handle privately, not wanting to have official records that might affect Andy's future. Now I realize we were just enabling him to get worse. Update 3, this will be my final update on this nightmare situation. Andy is now facing serious jail time after repeatedly violating the restraining order and escalating his behavior to dangerous levels. Over the past 3 months, Andy found every possible way to harass us despite the restraining order. He created over 30 different social media accounts to contact us. When we'd block one, another would pop up within hours. He sent letters to Diana's office address from fake law firms claiming to represent him in lawsuits over their shared property and alleging they had a common law marriage. He even showed up at her company's holiday party pretending to be a client's husband. He was telling everyone about their secret love affair and showing doctored photos on his phone as proof. The most disturbing incident happened at my hospital. Andy bought scrubs and a fake ID badge online, walked right into the staff area during shift change, and spent 2 hours convincing my coworkers that he was a new nurse on rotation. He told everyone this elaborate story about how Diana was abusive and controlling and how I was trapped in the marriage but too scared to leave. My parents finally had him evaluated by a psychiatrist who diagnosed him with erotomania, a delusional disorder where someone convinces themselves that another person is in love with them. The doctor recommended immediate inpatient treatment, but Andy refused. We found out he had been living in his car, parking it around the corner from our house and watching our movements. He'd set up this whole surveillance spot with binoculars, notebooks full of our daily schedules, and printed photos of Diana everywhere. The police arrested him again last week after he tried to break into Diana's new office. He's facing multiple charges now: violating the restraining order, breaking and entering, identity theft for the fake nurse ID, credit card fraud for using Dad's card, and stalking. My relationship with my extended family is permanently damaged. Even the relatives who now admit they were wrong for believing Andy's lies still make comments about how families should stick together no matter what. My Aunt Maria had the nerve to suggest that Diana and I should write a letter to the judge asking for leniency, saying Andy only acted this way because he loves too much. I've cut contact with all of them. Diana and I are moving to another state next month. She got an amazing job offer with a tech company in Austin, and I found a position at a great hospital there. We're only telling my dad our new address. He's been the only consistently supportive person through all of this. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I look at old photos of Andy and me as kids and try to understand how we ended up here. How did my sweet little brother, who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms and help me with my math homework, turn into someone I need a restraining order against? I've lost my best friend and brother forever, but this whole nightmare has actually made my marriage stronger. Diana and I learned how to be a united front against chaos, and we're ready for our fresh start far away from all this drama. To everyone who followed this crazy story and offered support, thank you. We're going to be okay.